Nationalist. I support nationalism in my country, India, and in all countries around the globe. Today is the second Saturday, Sunday of the month, and so I'm going to be talking about the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Today, I will talk about the position of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization on the Taliban government in Afghanistan. Let's begin. So, um, the SCO has basically, in its official statements, said that they want the Taliban to have an inclusive government, to respect the rights of women, and to not allow terrorism to be conducted from Afghanistan against other countries. And now, so far, no SCO country or the SCO group has recognized the Taliban government as a legitimate government in Afghanistan. However, they have interacted with the Taliban, and some have given, if not de jure recognition, and not even de facto, but close to de facto, somewhat of a relationship has grown, but nothing official. So I'll explain that. So in on April 22nd, the deputy foreign ministers of Shanghai Cooperation Organization member countries met, and they discussed the need for the formation of an inclusive government in Afghanistan as soon as possible. The official statement read that particular attention was paid to the state of affairs in Afghanistan. The agreed position of the SCO was emphasized in favor of the early formation of an inclusive government with the participation of representatives of all ethno-political and religious groups of the Afghan society, the restoration of peace in this country, and its economic revival as an important factor in ensuring stability in the region. This is the message from the Russian diplomatic department, the usual stuff from the SEO, where they talk about multipolarity. So they also said that they increase efforts to improve the mechanisms of joint struggle against international terrorism and extremism, drug trafficking, transborder organized crime. Now, the so this shows that the official position of the SCO, which is what the Russians uh, said in this statement, has not changed from the time that Taliban took over the country in August 2021. And now, this Monday, this coming Monday, India will host anti-terrorism meeting for the SCO on Afghanistan. So what we discussed is that anti-terror measures under organization called the Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure, which comes under the SCO, which is the anti-terrorist organization for all the SCO countries. It contains members from all the SCO countries that engages in counterterrorism activity in all the SCO countries, and it will be this body that will work on counter-terror measures related to Afghanistan. Yeah. Now, one good note is that Islamabad is sending a three-member delegation to India to discuss this topic, which is important because generally Pakistan and India have been at odds with regards to Afghanistan, where Pakistan has given some uh, unofficial support to the Taliban so that it can counter Indian influence in Afghanistan, which in my opinion was completely unnecessary because although yes, India did have a lot of influence in Afghanistan under the previous US backed government, it was not a threat to Pakistan. There was no need for Pakistan to worry about that. But now, because I guess because the Taliban has been attacking the Afghan-Pakistani border in the last few months since it took over, so I guess now Pakistan wants to take action against it, and that's why it's working with India and the other SCO countries. Modi has said in the SCO summit last year that instability and fundamentalism persist in Afghanistan. It will encourage terrorist and extremist ideologies all over the world. And other extremist groups may also be encouraged to come to power through violence. Now, in 2018, the SCO established the SCO Afghanistan Contact Group, and this is what was the SCO's official communication group for Afghanistan. But now that the Taliban has taken over, this organization is no longer very active, and the SCO countries are interacting with the Taliban on a bilateral basis. Here are how India and Pakistan see it. For the Taliban's return to power, the Afghan President Ashraf Ghani said that Pakistan had not severed ties with terror groups and had sent over 10,000 fighters to help the Taliban. And in November 2020, the India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval hosted a regional summit to discuss the Afghan situation with SCO members, but Pakistan and China did not attend the summit. And they instead held a Troika Plus group meeting in Islamabad with Russia and the US. Then India was not invited to this conference. Uh, it was had to conduct the third India Central Asia dialogue on the same day, and Kazakhstan, the Kyrgyz Republic, uh, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan were involved in this meeting. So yeah, Pakistan and India have not seen eye to eye now, and Pakistan has did give some support to Taliban when it was out of power, but now that Taliban is in power, it has taken action against Pakistan because it views the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan as illegitimate and wants it to be forcibly changed because they are not trying to negotiate with Pakistan. Now, China, how has China responded to Taliban? They have adopted a narrow approach of self driven diplomacy to hobnob with the Taliban, which causes further tensions in the region. The Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi attended the September 2021 SCO summit in Tajikistan and visited Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan to meet senior officials to discuss the Afghan situation. They sent special envoys to Kabul to meet Taliban leaders to discuss the formation of an inclusive government. So, this is not just China, but also Pakistan and Russia. So, these countries are working outside of the SCO forum. And however, it's good to see that they're still trying to pressure the Taliban to create an inclusive government. This term inclusive government refers to the different ethnic and religious groups in Afghanistan, and they want the Afghan government to include members of all these groups so that all of them are represented and included in governance. And yeah, uh, Russia has also, as I previously pointed out, been somewhat selfish in its actions with the Taliban. Um, Uzbekistan and the Turkmenistan hosted the Taliban delegations in 2021 to strengthen ties with the group, while the Kyrgyz Republic and Kazakhstan originally appeared to be in a wait and watch mode. In September 2021, the Kyrgyz government sent a delegation led by the deputy chairman of the National Security Council, to Kabul. And in December, Kazakhstan sent a delegation to Afghanistan to discuss cooperation and trade with Taliban. So yeah, they're all trying to work with the Taliban, although they still don't recognize it. So it's a very odd situation, in my opinion. Now, so that's the situation for each of the countries. So, and however, um, now things are getting worse because on April 21st, the Islamic State of Khorasan, a terrorist organization, which is basically ISIS in Afghanistan, carried out bombings of Shia mosques in Mazar-e Sharif, which is an Afghan city, some 60 kilometers from the border with Uzbekistan, and in the city of Kunduz, 50 kilometers from the border with Tajikistan. They claimed responsibility. The Taliban quickly denied the ISK claim, however, which was that a rocket had been launched on Uzbekistan. The Uzbek presidential spokesman said that information disseminated by some Telegram channels about the alleged rocket fire from the territory of Afghanistan is absolutely untrue. So, what does this mean? What can we interpret from this? First, the timeline, April 18th, ISK posted a video on internet that the group said was evidence of a rocket attack on Uzbekistan by them. On the 19th, the Taliban denied the ISK claim and the Uzbek government said it was untrue. Then on the 21st, the ISK bombed places near the Uzbek and Tajik borders. This shows that while this initial claim might have been fake and was probably done just to spread uh, disharmony between the Taliban and Uzbekistan governments, but this one is clearly done by them, and it's again done to spread disorder, not just between Afghanistan government and Uzbekistan, but also between the Taliban and Tajikistan. This is because the Taliban has not successfully made an inclusive government, and the Uzbeks and Tajik Afghans have not been properly included in the government, and they have been facing some oppression from the Taliban, which is what they claim, and so the Islamic State has worked to bring in Uzbeki and Tajik Afghans into their ranks. Now, the Uzbekistan and Tajikistan governments are not Islamist. They do not support terrorism or Islamic jihad, and so IS basically views them as illegitimate and wants them to be overthrown. This is not just their uh, view, but also the view of previously existing uh, jihadist organizations in Afghanistan that targeted these countries. So we can see that while the SCO officially is united in not recognizing the Taliban, but unofficially they are divided because while India continues to remain non interactive with the Taliban, and Pakistan been com- has a hostile relationship with them, but the other regional countries like China and Russia have tried working with them, and the Asian countries have been forced to work with them to prevent them from allowing terrorist attacks against their countries, and so that they can create transport corridors through Afghanistan Uh, so, yeah, I'm not sure how these countries can resolve their differences. I'm glad that their official stance in the SCO is still united, but I think that sooner or later it will be forced to change. I think that they should somehow refocus the conditions on which they would recognize the Taliban rather than focusing on the internal conditions and affairs of Afghanistan, such as women's rights. They should rather just focus on making sure that Taliban does not promote terror outside the country, because that is what affects them and the whole international community. What happens within Afghanistan has no direct effect on other countries, and so they should not uh, make an issue on those lines. And I think by doing this, we can help the Taliban feel a little less cornered. I think it's not uh, feeling comfortable with engaging with the outside world. If and so it's not making enough effort to take action against terrorism within their country, and they are still a terrorist organization according to most countries, and they need to be forced to denounce their previous terrorist activities and to completely uh, remove terrorism as a policy. And yeah, as far as their inclusive uh, conditions for their government that the SCO has, I think that also needs to be relooked rather than the Uzbek and Tajikistan governments uh, wanting the Taliban to uh, respect the Uzbek and Tajik Afghans. What they should do is simply allow citizenship to Uzbek and Tajik Afghans who are being persecuted within their own countries. Therefore, these groups can leave Afghanistan and come to these two countries which are safer for them, and the Taliban can be allowed to rule Afghanistan. And then the Islamic State will not be allowed to use these communities to radicalize them and to engage in terrorist attacks against the Central Asian countries. Now, as for India, uh, there it has been intelligence reports that jihadists in Pakistan have been sending weapons from Afghanistan to terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir. So I think from this we can say that there is still some relationship between Pakistan and Taliban, because the Taliban is the only one that could be supplying these weapons to Pakistan. So that is a worry. I'm not sure how India can stop this except by putting intense pressure on the Taliban, which it can do through the SCO. Hopefully, this will be raised in the anti terror meeting that will be held this week. And yeah, I think that the RATS needs to be reinvigorated and should be allowed to take action within any SEO country, for, but it shouldn't be deployed in Afghanistan because it's dangerous for them. The Taliban may not protect them and may even be hostile towards them. So they should remain within their own countries for now. So yeah, it's a complicated situation, and I don't have any ready-made easy solutions. But I hope that the SEO can continue its general stance of not recognizing the Taliban until it completely stops terrorism from its Afghanistan and gives up terrorism as a policy. But I disagree with their conditions on the internal affairs of Afghanistan. That's where I stand. I just want to say that I have completely goodwill for the people of Afghanistan, and I know that they've been suffering not just under the Taliban but also under the previous US-backed government and the previous Taliban administration, and before that, the Soviet government. They've been living in a world close to hell for the last few generations, and I hope that in the near future they can have some peace. Yeah, that's all I wish for them. I want to end this video by wishing good luck to Afghanistan. If you want to see other videos about the SCO, click here. If you want to see my previous video, click here. If you want to see the sources I use for this video, click the links in the description below. Thank you for watching. Vande Mataram.